Hello and welcome back to Best of Cape Ann. I am your host, Sophie Larson.
And I'm Lizzie Claybart.
And today we're going to be talking about museums in the area.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start with the Cape Ann Museum, which is located in Gloucester, Mass. It was established in 1873, and it's just your pretty basic museum. It's got galleries, it's got an auditorium, it's got tours, it's got a nice little gift shop.
Mm-hmm. And you can take a guided tour or you can just go on your own, which is what we did.
Yep, we went on our own.
I think the guided tour gives you access to like one of the other historic houses that we didn't get to see, but the self-guided tour is nice too because you can kind of just go at your own pace and yeah.
Yeah, and especially for us, we had a meter running, so it's good to know that we would be able to get back in time.
Yep, definitely. So this is a really awesome museum, especially if you're visiting the area. It gives you a great overview of the culture and history. It has both modern day and antique and more historical exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the really cool galleries on the first floor is the Fitzhenry Lane Gallery, which features many of his paintings. He did a lot of the maritime, like Gloucester Harbor paintings, which are really cool. And they also have room setups with antique furniture, which are really nice. I think that was the last gallery we went in.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's really cool. It really does capture the culture, like Lizzie said.
Yeah.
I
mean,
Gloucester,
his painting. Yeah.
Gloucester, as I said in a previous episode, is the oldest seaport in Massachusetts. So, fishing is a huge part of the culture. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of emphasis on it in the art that you see. Mm-hmm. Fishermen have a big part of the culture. There was a more contemporary exhibit where it had just photographs of modern-day fishermen from the Gloucester area.
Mm-hmm. That was really cool.
Yep, and then we saw, what was it, a bust of the Virgin Mary.
Oh, yeah, that was on one of the top of the churches. And you want to explain that?
Yeah, so it had been on the top of a church for many years, but like in one hand she was holding baby Jesus, and in the other hand she was holding a ship. Yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea of like the importance of fishing.
Yeah. You can really see how it's integrated into the culture, and it's such a big part of the identity.
Huge part. Like in Gloucester every year there's a festival called Fiesta for St. Peter, which I believe it's St. Peter. We should have researched that, but it's St. Peter, and I know it's for the fishermen that have been lost at sea, and there are statues all around. So it's really cool how Cape Ann Museum really was able to encapsulate the culture.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And just going back to that, the Fitzhenry Lane Gallery, he was a native of Gloucester, and he's definitely known for his maritime art, and it literally, like, you look at those paintings and you feel like you're there. They just capture the seaport so well. It's amazing.
It was really, really cool and realistic, and again, there's more historic pieces like that one, and like others there. We saw some artifacts, like Native American artifacts, and some historic ships, some historic tools, but then again, they have exhibits for contemporary artists. I saw one from an artist in the area that was as recent as 2015. So it's a cool mix, but it's all about Cape Ann.
Features a lot of local artists, which is great.
Yeah.
And then so heading up, so the first floor I would say is more of like, it's like the art gallery, and then there's more like earlier pieces and sort of portraits and artifacts and whatnot. And in one of the first floor galleries, there is actually a diorama of Gloucester Harbor, which is really cool because you can walk around and see what it looked like in the past and the inner workings of the harbor. So it's really cool. And then we headed up to the second floor, which I don't know if you remember the lens from the lighthouse.
Yeah.
That was really cool. It's really beautiful because it really reflects the light, and it's huge, so you can see how how big it needs to be to get the light. One other thing that we got there were these character cards, and you can see a photo of them if you're watching it on video, but they basically follow different people and their day-to-day lives. So, like, I'm looking at this one right here, and it says, "Imagine you're Charles Olson, a sailmaker." and it just goes through the day. So it says you work 9-hour days, 6 days a week for just $4. And then it sort of has a few other bullet points of what his life might have looked like, but they're really interesting. And there's several of them, so you can see a kind of a wide variety of what life might have looked like for different people in the area at the time. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yep. I really liked it there. It was really beautiful. I'd never been there before, which is crazy because of how close it is and how pretty and well maintained it is. I really enjoyed it. They did a really good job of, as I've said numerous times, just capturing the culture, talking about, like, immigrants. There was some stuff about people from Portugal. There are a lot of Portuguese immigrants in Gloucester. There are also a lot of Italian immigrants, and also just the fishing culture. It was a really cool look at the community that I grew up knowing and know so well. Yeah. And it's probably, it's cool for me being from the community, and it's probably cool for someone coming in from the outside to learn about some of the historical stuff in the more modern culture.
Yeah, I think there was a couple who said they were from the Midwest when we were there, so you can see it gets a kind of locals, but it also gets people who are visiting, so you can really get a taste of the area. And then the third floor has rotating exhibits. So the time that we went, they had Green Places, Green Spaces, and Greenhouses by Esther Pullman, and this was a really cool exhibit. It featured panorama photos of greenhouses, so that was a beautiful area.
Excuse us, we're too popular for our own good.
And also on the third floor is the Folly Cove Designers Collection, and that was all the patterns on mostly fabric, but it was really beautiful work done by those folks.
Yeah, so like different kinds of art too.
Yeah, definitely. Different mediums.
Textiles, yeah.
So just a fun fact, there is discounted admission for Cape Ann residents, and it's also, the museum is free to Cape Ann residents during the month of January, so anyone in the area, if you want to check that out, those are a few things that might make you want to go see it, and also the awesome exhibits and stuff. So
yeah. So that was a more traditional museum. We moved on and we went to the Salem Witch Museum, which is a very different kind of museum.
Yes.
It's exclusively about the Salem witch trials. It's not like Cape Ann, which is about the whole area. Yeah. From past to present. Salem Witch Museum is just about that.
Yep.
And it had, it's more of a production there. It's a little bit, it's definitely touristy. It's definitely a little bit gimmicky. So what you do is you go in and then there's a presentation, which is basically a recorded story, which is a pretty dramatic telling of the Salem Witch trials. And they have all of these mannequins and that are all around you, and as the story goes on, it lights up different areas of the mannequins and to correspond with the story.
Yep.
So it's more of a production than a museum from what we saw. Yeah,
it was definitely the first part is I think a 30-minute presentation. So that's what Sophie was just talking about. And then the second part is I think it's a 15-minute guided tour. I've never done that before, but have you?
I've done that. It's basically about the same thing. You like walk around and they talk about life at the time of the Salem witch trials, Puritan times. Obviously, it was very restrictive. And like you go into like this area that's like dungeons, and they're like, oh my god, they feed the prisoners lobster. What? So it was a couple of years ago, so that's about all I remember. It's a flashbulb memory of lobsters and prison.
So
it's definitely more of a show, I'd say. And Salem, you can find a lot of places like that. Its main tourist attraction is drawn from the Salem witch trials. Yeah, they do a good job of, like, they don't say that there were witches. Yeah. So that's good. Yeah. They're not like, they were practicing the devil's work.
It does try to provide context as to, like, why things went down the way they did, and, like, you know, the whole, what happened, really.
What happened, like, why the girls were spewing stories and such. So, yeah, it gives you a good context. It's not like,
Yeah, it's just pretty much an overview of the whole. If you didn't know anything about it and you went, it's a good thing to kind of, if you wanted to learn about the trials.
We've learned about it extensively.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's because we lived in the area or just because that's what you do.
Yeah.
With American
history.
But yeah, it was cool, and it's a cool thing to do if you're new and you've never been to Salem before.
Yeah. I think that was the first time that I'd ever been there, so it was a interesting experience.
Yeah, it's a cool experience. There were a lot of families there, a lot of little kids. I don't know if I'd recommend you bringing little kids there.
Yeah, it's a little scary.
It was kind of scary.
Yeah.
There's the devil was alive in Salem.
They actually have like a figure of the devil in the corner.
Yeah,
that
they
lights
do.
Up, so that's
like it was scary.
Yeah,
I was watching it. And I was like,
yeah, that's a little scary.
Yeah, it's a little scary. But there were kids in there, and there wasn't any like wailing or.
Yeah, you can always take the kids out too if it's too much.
They're fine.
Yeah. All right. So that was the two that we went to recently, but we also have obviously been to several in the past, and just ones that we've gone to a lot. We wanted to give a few shout outs to. So
field trips and recreation.
Yes. Yeah.
We were going to go to the Peabody Essex Museum this time, but because of time, it didn't really work out. But we've both been to the Peabody Essex Museum multiple times. It's also in Salem.
Yeah.
It's like probably 2 blocks away from the Salem Witch Museum.
Yeah, it's so close.
Peabody Essex Museum is a more conventional museum. It's got both art and history. It's much larger than the Cape Ann Museum, and it's more extensive. It's not really limited to just the area. It's got a lot of different exhibits from different artists. There's this house in it, the China House.
Oh, yeah.
That's basically like they somehow transported an entire traditional Chinese house from China and brought it to Salem, and there it is.
It's so cool. You get to walk through it. I don't know if it's always open, but you usually can go through it.
You usually can.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, that's basically it. I always enjoy my time at the Peabody Essex Museum. There are interactive exhibits. It's definitely family-friendly.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. It's got, like, a food court, too.
I know they do, like, special events there and stuff, too, which are cool.
Yeah.
Kind of brings the culture further into the community, which is nice. And then one other place that is specifically Cape Ann and specifically Manchester is the Trask House, which is obviously located in Manchester. It's right across from the public library. And it's a historic home. It was built in 1823 by Abigail Hooper. And it's a great place if you want to go and learn about Manchester and its past. It has a ton of artifacts. A lot of them have been donated by people from Manchester, and they just want to donate their historical items to the Historical Society, and so it's really cool to go through and see. Very well curated. And it has a lot of like period furniture, artifacts, and fine art, so that's a great place to go if you want to learn a little bit more about Manchester specifically. Yeah, we used to walk down there every year for a field trip, and it was cool to learn about. It's definitely historical. It's more of a limited museum. It's just basically trying to capture life, historic life in Manchester. Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. Manchester's a cool town.
Yeah.
It's got some cool history. So yeah.
All right. Well, I think that just about wraps up our 3rd episode.
Yep. We're planning on releasing one more episode where we travel to the historic North End in Boston.
Yep.
And sample some of the Italian cuisine and culture.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun.
That'll be a fun episode.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for tuning in yet again.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening.
This has been Best of Cape Ann.